Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. My haunted drive-in. I'm going to try to put it right here. There we go. Last week was fun, and this week we're doing a definite low-budget film that could almost be considered an art film. It is a bit of a cult classic, and it's called Let's Scare Jessica to Death, directed by John D. Hancock.
This way, Jessica. Here, Jessica, here.
This came out in 1971. There was a remake recently, which I have not seen. So if anyone has seen the remake and if you can recommend it, please let me know in the comments below. So one critic dubbed this an eerie, low-budget chiller, which I think is a pretty good description. It has been compared to Sheridan Le Fanu's novel Carmilla, which Grumpy Andrew just did a video about vampire lovers, and he mentioned Carmilla. So our Carmilla is definitely going to be on my reading list this summer. I think I read it a really long time ago, but I'm definitely going to read it again because I keep having all these weird synchronicities with Carmilla. There's been several. So when that happens, I figure I need to pay attention. So I thought this was interesting. Before I get into the description, one of the reviewers in 2006, maybe they're looking at this again, in Slant, I guess website, said this film that we're going to look at today, Let's Scare Jessica to Death, describes it as a lesbian panic melodrama in New England Gothic drag. Well, already I'm loving that. So this might be a negative review, but for me, that's a positive review. The only thing separating Let's Scare Jessica to Death and its cinematic descendants are its narrative incoherence, its lack of a directorial presence, especially surprising considering the colloquial implications of the director's name, all right, and its drab, and I love this, douche commercial mise en scène. I like the douche commercial mise en scène feeling of this movie. It's a nostalgia piece for me. Now, I know I didn't see this in the drive-in. I was too young when this came out, but I've seen it, I don't know where I saw it. I probably watched it online maybe 10 years ago or so, and I really love it. It's one of my favorite kind of quiet horror films. Yes, it has this kind of grainy, it almost looks like it was shot in 16 millimeter, probably was. It has that same look as like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this type of film, which is why I put it in the drive-in. It probably was played at the drive-in, although I don't know that for sure. It seems like it would have been. Yes, the overdubbing dialogue is cheesy in spots. Again, those flaws add to the charm, as it were, for me anyway, for this film. I definitely recommend it to anyone who is attracted to like kind of quiet horror, psychological horror. So here's a little bit of description of what this is about. Jessica and her husband, Duncan, and I love the actress who playing Jessica, I forget her name, I'm going to put it right there. I've seen her in other things. She was kind of like in a lot of movies and around that time. Not a big star, but I definitely remember her face, and I love her in this. She plays a woman kind of on the edge of sanity and does a really good job with it. Jessica and her husband, Duncan, leave the big city for a country idyll, and now this is a common theme in 70s horror books and movies like Harvest Home or Race with the Devil, which we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing that in the drive-in this summer too. It's one of my favorites. This idea that we're going to go back to nature, we're going to leave the big city, we're going to grow our own vegetables, and everything's going to be great. And then it never turns out great. There's always creepy people in the town, and this is no exception. There's always some weirdness going on. So they buy an old farm on an island in New England, and they have this hippie friend with them who's like a dead ringer for this hippie friend that my husband used to have with like the same mustache, kind of weird. His name's Woody, and he's going to like farm. It looks like there's an orchard on the property. He's going to do this. Duncan apparently was a musician. He plays like a cello or a big bass. And Jessica just got out of the funny farm. And now we don't really know why. We don't know what happened to her. It's just that we get that she's in a delicate way. The two men are kind of like walking on eggshells around her, wondering if she's really okay. She does have this habit of going into, like the first time we see her, first of all, they drive a hearse, not a station wagon. They say it's cheaper than a station wagon. So that's kind of cheeky. I like the hearse. She jumps out of the hearse when they go into New England, and she does a grave rubbing where you put a piece of tracing paper over the grave with charcoal and rub it. Now, I'm still reading my Edward Gorey book, and apparently that was one of his hobbies too. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, so this is her hobby, and so this country is kind of setting and what they're doing, leaving the city, is a way of trying to help Jessica get over her nervous breakdown. When they get to the house, there's this moment where they're not alone. Oh, first of all, Jessica sees this like kind of gothic-y kind of girl in like a white dress running around the graveyard, and no one else seems to see her but Jessica. There's a girl living in the house when they get there, kind of like a hippie chick who's squatting there. Her name is Emily. She's a pretty redhead. She's so charming that they ask her to stay, and she stays for dinner and plays mandolin, and she sings, and Duncan brings out his cello and they play this little duet, and there's a sense that Jessica is getting a little paranoid about her husband's attraction to Emily. Both men are just kind of like zeroed in on this new woman, and Jessica's feeling insecure. But she does ask her to stay. So Jessica's becoming increasingly paranoid. Emily starts acting weirder and weirder and very seductive, and not to mention that the people in the village are just these old men with bandages around their necks and wrists, and they're really strange. They have these strange scars. Jessica finds in the attic this. They're looking to sell some antiques, and she finds an old photograph. And the girl in the photograph looks exactly like Emily, the redhead, who's staying there, is acting weird. They do sell the photograph to the antiques dealer. He ends up dead. Jessica finds his body, but then it's gone. No one believes her. There's a sense that she's being paranoid. So I did want to do like a book tie-in for every movie. Now, as far as I could tell, there's no book of this movie, but I did think a good book tie-in is Sweetheart, Sweetheart by Bernard Taylor. It's written around the same time, and kind of early 70s feeling. It's about a man who's a little paranoid, a little mentally ill, who goes to the country and tries to kind of get his life back together. And there are weird happenings and ghosts, and is it in his head or not? Although this Let's Scare Jessica to Death is more like a vampire. It's kind of like a vampire ghost. So the story definitely has this creepy feeling of this idea is like, is it really happening, or is it just going on inside my mind? It's definitely all in your head, Regina. All right, come on. All right, Batilda, now that you've made your presence known, why don't you tell us what you thought? Well, I did find it to be a little drab in that it didn't have a lot of gore. But it did give me some ideas. The next time Regina needs a rest and we all go out to the country with Sebastian, I might just play a few tricks on her. Okay, well, there you have it. Thanks again for stopping by our haunted drive-in, and we'll see you soon. Bye.